I'm making this video because I think everyone is secretly in agreement about what should be done with kampfer, unless they're just like a purist who doesn't want to change him at all. Because if you think he's underpowered, you think the bazookas suck. If you think he's overpowered, you think the shotgun's too strong. And if you're just looking at it from sort of a distant middle ground angle, you probably think both of those things at once, and you think, man, I never want to use the bazookas in place of the shotgun, because that's sort of the fun issue, and whichever one is underpowered or overpowered or both or neither, whatever, not really the point. The point isn't how good he is relative to other characters, just that one of his weapons is way better than the other weapon, and it makes him less fun. Here's how he works. You don't really have two guns. You have one gun that can shoot either projectile as long as you call it out a dash in advance. His rate of fire, his swapping speed, and his dash duration are all three the same. So basically, you just connect the dots and then you say bazooka, and you'll have a bazooka in your hands by the time you hit here. And then you say shotgun, and you'll have a shotgun in your hands by the time you hit here. And then you say bazooka, and you'll have a bazooka in your hands by the time you hit here. And you can shoot on each one of these dashes. Basically, you can at the same speed you can do shotgun, shotgun, shotgun. You can do shotgun, bazooka, shotgun, bazooka. That's the fun part of kampfer. You can be really sleight of handy. The problem is that when you're picking how to dole these cards out, uh, let's say you're fighting a shield, right? Logically, you would think, oh, well, one of the issues with kampfer is that his shotgun doesn't reward him with fuel if he's hitting a shield. Shields don't count for that effect. So you'd say, okay, well, all of my bazooka shells should be doled out to the shields, and then all of my shotgun shells should be doled out to regular health, right? If you dole the cards out that way, you get fuel on all of your shotgun shells. But in practice, this just sucks because the bazookas don't do enough damage to break shields. Let's do a little math. So let's say you're just trying to save one shotgun shell, right? You say, well, maybe I save one shotgun shell by using a bazooka shell in its place. Bazooka shells got about half the damage of a shotgun shell. So if you had 100% of the damage of a shotgun shell, then you would have a 100% chance of saving ammo, right? Because one shotgun shell has a 100% chance of saving you one shotgun shell in the sense that it's what it is. And similarly, if you had 0% of the damage, well, that's nothing, so it's 0%. And logically, I mean, this isn't a formal proof, but if you have 50% of the damage of a shotgun shell, that means you got a 50% chance of actually, I drew that wrong, a 50% chance of saving yourself a shotgun round in the first place. So if I'm shooting my shield and I'm doing my little connect the dots thing, ooh, and one of these rounds is a bazooka round, this has a 50-50 chance of doing nothing. And if it does nothing, not only do I fail to save a shotgun round, but now I also have to do an extra dot because this took time. And that's why it sucks that this is a 50-50, because this is like a 50% chance to save something or a 50% chance to waste time instead of a 50% chance to like break even. And this is why the bazookas definitely need to do more than half of the damage the shotgun does, in my opinion. To the torso, not to the head. Because, again, this is versus shields. So there's two ways to go about this. The first one is you make the shotgun do less damage. The second one is that you make the bazookas do more damage. Probably a little bit of both should be done. So let's start with the bazookas. How much damage do they do? A direct hit is 250. An indirect hit does between 150 to 70 damage. The bonus for a direct hit is 100, which is the same bonus as Dom's rockets, but his splash is much lower, and that makes this a very direct hit reliant weapon. because the 100 damage bonus is a larger fraction of his damage in proportion to the splash. So what I would do is just add 10 damage to every bazooka shell, which is the same as adding 10 minimum and 10 maximum splash. And the reason why I like this is because at the moment, the most useful thing about Kampfer's bazookas is just that 2 directs adds up to 500 damage, which allows you to confirm a disabled mech. But what kind of sucks about his bazookas is that if you don't get your directs, 250 plus 70 times 3 might not add up to 500 damage. I don't remember exactly how much this is, but let me get my calculator out. I think it's 460. Yeah, it's 460. And that's why I would like 10 damage per shell, because that puts 460 up to 500. You get 10 for this, you get 10 times 3 for this, and now it's 400. So you can very reliably splash in 4 hits. And why is 4 a relevant number? It's because he reloads his stowed weapon in the time it takes to fire a gun 4 times. Incidentally, this is also equal to the maximum number of times he can dash, and that's why I think his fuel rewards and all that are very balanced. He can only dash 4 times with the bazookas, and then he'll be out of fuel by the time the shotgun reloads. So he is not a perpetual motion device. It's balanced. So with that in mind, let's say a direct hit with the bazooka does 260. How much damage does the shotgun do? Currently it does 440. It's like 440 to the torso. I think it's 440. Yeah, it's 441 to the torso. And if we want it to do no more than 50% more than the bazooka, which would mean the bazooka has a 2/3 chance of saving you ammo if you slip it into your shotgun mag, that would be 390. So that is like a 50 damage nerf. It's pretty severe, but we'll be just slightly generous. And because we know it's a 9 pellet spread, let me get my calculator out again. It's a 9 pellet spread, so if we make each pellet do 44 points of damage, then that's like 396 damage if everything hits the torso. The relevant metric to look at for a shotgun nerf is how many shotgun pellets does it take to break a shield? Or I guess I should say how many shells does it take to break a shield? So let's look at that. I think doing a little under 400 damage is good because now, say, 400 damage Gundam shield. You can't break that in one hit, but 300 damage Dynamis shield, you can. And that makes them now distinct. And distinction is good. And similarly, there's stuff like Hyperion's little Dorito is 700 HP versus Zeta's shield is 800 HP. So again, not being able to do 800 in 2 taps makes those two things distinct. There is the fact that Kampfer's Zeta matchup sucks, because as long as he's not hovering with his back to a wall, he forces you to make a midair bazooka shot or spend a shotgun shell on a shield. So you might think, I kind of think he should be able to 2-tap Zeta's shield, but more of a Zeta problem, if I'm being honest. If you wanted to flip Zeta and Hyperion's shield values, so Hyperion's Dorito was 800 and Zeta's Wingbinder whatever shield was 700, honestly, I'm down for that. But that's all I'm going to say about that, and I'd rather look at GM and SAS next. For GM, I think it's fine. If you do 396 per shotgun shell, and maybe he punches one of those to get 50% damage reduction. We'll say you land like 2.5 shotgun rounds on him. Actually, let's delete all of this and do it in terms of pellets. So let's say you only hit 8 out of 9 pellets per round. And this is 44 damage per pellet times 2.5 shots, roughly speaking. Let me get my calculator out. Yeah, so this much damage plus we'll say you get one perfect splash hit is 1040 damage. So you haven't broken the shield yet, but instead of just 8, let's say you landed one more pellet that he didn't punch and one more pellet that he did punch. So this is still a pellet shy from perfect. This now adds up to, yeah. So this breaks his shield. And this right here, if you don't get a perfect splash, 80 plus 80 equals 160. So you definitely get it by the second hit. You could get it by the first hit. And I think that's pretty good because it means his punch doesn't go to waste and it forces you to use the Zooks. But you can also break his shield somewhat reliably. Saz, however, oh, so this is pretty nice. 44 times 8 times 4 equals 1408. So you can 4-tap Saz's shield and miss exactly 1 pellet per burst. That's pretty reasonable, if I'm being honest. That's pretty reasonable. The only other thing is that a perfect shot with the Fausts plus a solid 9 pellets to the torso equals 801 damage exactly. And that might sound unfair. These are the real numbers, by the way, not the numbers I'm proposing. If you do 441 plus 360, it's 801 damage. And, well, let's look at the characters that actually have that much health. Exia, if you're not aiming for the head versus an Exia, you're a dumbass. So this basically does not apply to him. GM, if you're a shieldless GM, get fucked. I kind of don't care. Z2R is the real question. So how does Kampfer versus Z2R work? Basically, you want your slow to overlap with his smoke. So if your slow does enough damage for him to suddenly be one-tappable, that means he has to smoke when you hit him with the slow. Do you see how that works? Because now that he's slowed, he has less invincibility distance. A good Z2R basically smokes as soon as they take damage from Kampfer because they know, oh, Kampfer can't chase me if I'm invincible because he has to deal damage to get fuel. And what the Fausts do is they stop you from being able to like wait out the slow effect. And the question is really, if you lower the shotgun damage, does Z2R suddenly start to go, oh, okay, I can take one more shotgun round before I smoke, and then he smokes with the slow effect gone. So if you lower the shotgun from 441 to 396 was the proposed number, I believe. What is that? It's like a 50 damage difference. It's a 45 damage difference. So if we were to add 45 damage to the Fausts, 360 plus 45, that's 405 damage. That doesn't sound right. So you're basically giving up this combo, and that's a little bit sad, in my opinion, because landing your Fausts and then dashing forward with shotgun hip fire, basically a quick melee. But yeah, I don't know. It's a cool attack. It's a cool combo to land when you get it. And I would be a little bit sad to see it go, but not that sad to see it go. With that in mind, though, 44 per pellet and plus 10 damage per Zook. This is the least I would buff Kampfer and the most I would nerf him. And I would say if you go any lower than this, like you neglect to buff him or you nerf the shotgun even more, you've basically lowered Kampfer to C tier. But this is like the threshold for B tier. The other thing is that his ult basically sucks unless you hit Screaming Nimbus. And it's pretty relevant, but the only time I have ever used Kampfer's ult to do anything other than that, and thought to myself, wow, I really couldn't have done this with Z2R ult, is when I blocked a choke point and then took a revive while the bombs were detonating. That is the only thing I have ever done with Kampfer's ult that I couldn't have probably done with Z2R ult, besides kill Screaming Nimbus. And even then, I could probably do it with Z2R ult if I just stun the guy, kill him, run back, take the res. So maybe if you want to like increase the uniqueness value of the ult, you increase the blast radius. I think that would make blocking areas much more doable, and that's how you make the ult stand out, I guess. I would consider buffing that. It's not a great ult.